How does Terry Fox, Rick Hansen, and Newfoundland history inspire Gemma Hickey? Let's find out. Hi, my name is Crystal Fletcher, and welcome to All About Books. If you love books, then you've come to the right channel because not only do you get to meet the author, you get to find out what inspired them to write their novel. For the latest author interviews, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and you'll also find out some behind the scenes stories. Today, I am thrilled to have Gemma Hickey with me. Gemma is a passionate humanist who has been very busy changing the Canadian legal landscape, expanding rights, equality, and dignity for LGBTQ2+ community, and raising awareness for survivors of clergy abuse. Today, we'll be discussing Gemma's autobiography, Almost Feral, which was published by Breakwater Books. And just to give you a little taste about what Gemma's book is about, I'll read the back jacket. On July 2nd, 2015, influential social activist Gemma Hickey began a 908-kilometer walk across the island of Newfoundland to raise awareness and funds for survivors of religious institutional abuse. Almost Feral celebrates the community of support that gathered around this journey and recounts Hickey's remarkable story of self-discovery, which led to the realization that they are transgender. In this thought-provoking and wide-ranging autobiography, Hickey counters memories of sexual abuse, bullying, and depression with inspiring reflections on faith, love, family, individual and communal identity, sex, gender, and acceptance. Welcome to All About Books, Gemma.
Thank you for having me. This is such a treat today.
And belated birthday greetings as well.
44, yeah, just turned it last week. Still celebrating though. Lots to celebrate.
As you should be. So I'll just jump right in here, Gemma. So let's go back to Terry Fox, Rick Hansen, and Newfoundland's incredible history. How did this play a part in your 908-kilometer journey?
Well, I was a kid when Terry Fox touched his foot in the Atlantic here in St. John's. He started here. So I remember seeing him sitting in the car with my mom. I think it was about 3 or 4. And I just really, picture just really stuck with me, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, Rick Hansen, going across the country in his wheelchair. And I just thought, wow, these men are really inspirational. And I think at the time I didn't realize I was going to walk across Newfoundland, but you know, their stories stuck with me. And so that influenced my thinking and my drive to walk across the island.
Now, your 908-kilometer journey was epic in every sense of the word. The distance, the self-discovery, and you had the beautiful support of the media, but also the local community every step of the way. So when did you know that you would turn this journey into an autobiography?
You know, I've always wanted to be a writer. As a kid, I read all the time and I wrote all the time. And I think writing and reading really lifted me out of any kind of trauma that I was experiencing in my personal life, you know, gave me wings. And I just think that was transformative in itself. So for me, I think in my head, I was always thinking of when I was going to write. You know, I've been writing poetry over the years. I have my pieces have been included in various anthologies, things like that. But I knew I was going to write a book. It was just a matter of time. Yeah. And I got busy with all the other advocacy work I was doing. But I think it was after the walk. You know, I had been writing it along the walk in my head, my memory, you know, capturing all of the sights and sounds and stories and people that I met. but I thought I'd write it down shortly thereafter. And it took a couple of years, of course, because I got busy with other things.
Yes.
But I think, I was writing as I was walking. And, at some point, I don't think it surprised me that I was going to put this down into words. So I think it was probably a few months after the walk that I had thought, I got to put this into a book somehow. And and that's what I did a couple of years later.
Well, we're glad you did. Now, Gemma, I was really impressed with the way you balanced everything during your walk, like from the physicality of it. Like you were in a lot of physical discomfort along the way. You had terrible blisters on your feet. You're also emotionally visiting all of these traumas while you're walking. And also survivors are joining you on your walk and sharing their stories of abuse with you. So how are you able to stay motivated to get out of bed every day and keep going every day on that walk?
It was the hardest thing I had ever done, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I had anticipated the emotional challenges that would
Mm-hmm.
come about for me, I trained like a pro athlete. Honestly, I had 4 different trainers. I lost 75 pounds. I had prepared for this walk for a year in terms of training and planning and proposal writing to get funding from the government and sponsorships and things like that. It was very planned out.
Mm-hmm.
And, I wanted to do it in a short period of time. And I also knew that I had to visit these communities and meet with people. I had to factor all that in. So, I knew I could do it in roughly 30 days. And, well, it really surprised me as I kept putting one foot in front of the other. The journey inward was the most difficult, because I wasn't used to that amount of solitude. There were times when I was walking alone on the highway. I mean, I walked most of the walk by myself. People did come out and say hello and chat with me and hug me, and they were part of it that way, and they donated. I did have an RCMP escort
Yeah.
follow me along for part of the way. And of course, people on my team kept coming back and checking. But, you know, that was hard to kind of check out of the physical pain. I had no skin on my feet
Yeah.
towards the beginning of the walk, with blistering and peeling off my feet and wincing with every step, and then the chafing. And in order to check out of the physical pain, I had to go in.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about the types of things that happened to me in the past, so that was another challenge as well. And that was even more difficult, to be honest, because there were parts of myself that I hadn't visited in a very long time, that I had nowhere else to go on the highway. It
Right.
was only me, and that was it. And so I had to think about things that I hadn't thought about for a very long time. And that was the challenge, for sure. It was a mental game all the way through it, And the stories people told me, because I was allowing myself to be so publicly vulnerable, they felt that they could talk to me as well. Sometimes people would just come on the highway and they'd want to touch me or want me to hold them when they cried, and I heard their stories of abuse, and, they were easier to carry while I was still walking. When I stopped to walk and I lay in bed at night, I could still hear their stories echo.
Yeah.
And it was hard, I still think about those people, and I'll carry them with me for the rest of my life. But that also gives me the fuel to keep going as well, to keep doing the advocacy work that I do.
Oh, well, it's incredible. And you said that Almost Feral is a book about falling in love with yourself, which I just think is so poetic. And there's so many people out there who don't have that self-love. So what advice would you give them, Gemma?
Just like any other relationship, there's ups and downs, and there's times when you don't know if you have it in you to continue,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think truly, once we sit with ourselves or be with ourselves for any period of time and face all of those things that keep resurfacing, truly embrace and acknowledge ourselves to ourselves. That's the greatest love story of all time. It really is. We're taught that from a very small age, we're taught that other people can save us. Love can save us. The church can save us. The only person that can save us is ourselves. And I put all this faith in the institution of the church and in all these types of relationships that I had, thinking that love would save me, would change me. But it took away from my own agency to take care of myself. And that's something that I realized on that walk. And I learned to own my life, both good and bad. And by the time I finished my walk, it was as if I walked from one side of the island to the other side of myself. And by the time I got to the end point, I had found a new way to love myself and to accept myself, good and bad. And I think that was a real defining moment in my life. I was 38 years old, and I had come to terms with every single thing. And that was incredible. And I do feel like I've arrived in many ways, and the journey is in the arrival. The arrival is continuous, it's continuous. And so I change every single day. Every day I evolve and grow and transition into the best version of myself. And, that's where I'm at.
I think that's wonderful and exciting for you too.
Thank you.
We were hoping that you could read an excerpt from your novel. And before you read, can you just share with us why you've chosen this particular section to read?
Well, I think the book is not just a narrative about someone who's transgender. It's about identity and how the things that we were raised with, places where we were raised, inform our identity. And I kind of interrogate gender throughout the book, but not just with myself, thinking about women in my life who've inspired me, and in their particular roles that I think were based on socialization. They had no other options. So the chapter I'm going to read is a very short chapter. It's called Tools, and it's in honor of my paternal grandmother, who taught me so many things and gave me that resilience, And in many ways, a lot of resilience the resilience that I have comes from women like, well, both of my grandparents, really, both sets, especially my grandmother. So this chapter is called Tools. It's in honor of my paternal grandmother, and I'm happy to share it with you all. I was 8 when my paternal grandmother said, "Me and your grandfather have nuts in our stomachs worrying about you and your father." I heard that line every day until she died 4 years later. And it was only then, when she stopped speaking, that I finally listened and understood. My people came from the old country. Like many families at the time, they left Ireland quite literally for bread, and when they arrived here, had to settle for crumbs. They weren't merchants. They worked with their hands. Their sharp humor cut through the hard times, and their stories and songs were passed down from one generation to the next like a coat of arms. It is in this ritual of passing down that we become equipped for things to come. I didn't think it was fair that my grandmother kept me inside while the other children were outside playing. I remember hearing them on the street. Their laughter echoed through the window like a loud drum that hurt my ears. I didn't want to learn how to cook, and I never liked doing dishes. The water made my hands look shriveled and old. Getting down on my hands and knees to clean felt uncomfortable. Making the beds, doing laundry, and ironing clothes seemed like pointless tasks because they would have to be done again the next day. One day, as my grandmother was walking me to the bus stop, I looked up at her and wondered why she was making me do this on foot in a half hour when my father could drive me to school in 10 minutes. I burned with anger for her then, and now the fire of self-sufficiency which she instilled in me is what keeps me alive. My grandmother died when all the chores were done. She finished her tea and lay down on my bed to rest and didn't wake up. She had a heart attack. My grandfather followed her 6 months later. When they were gone and I was left alone with my father, I remembered what my grandmother said to me. But more importantly, I remember what she taught me. My father drank too much, and when he couldn't get out of his own bed, I knew how to get out of mine. I even knew how to make it. When he couldn't cook, I knew how to turn on the stove and prepare our food, and when he couldn't drive me to school, I knew how to get there myself, wearing a uniform that was washed and neatly pressed. Sometimes, as feminists, we make assumptions about women like my grandmother because of how they choose to live their lives. In doing so, we create our own brand of fundamentalism. Instead of using gender as a bridge, it divides us even further. Where do we go from here, and how do we get there? The answer isn't in dismantling, because we can't throw it all away as much as we sometimes like to. It's in the rebuilding, not just of material things or abstract ideas, but of people and communities. How do we do this? We work together and salvage whatever supplies we can, using the tools we've acquired as our base. I think we can learn a lot from women like my paternal grandmother. Was she teaching me how to be a devoted housewife? No, of course not. She was teaching me how to survive in the only way she knew how. And those methods of survival are practical tools. She taught me how to be independent and how to care for myself in a way that would see me securely into the future. And I have used those tools to build my foundation ever since.
Oh, thank you. I mean, bless her, right? Just bless her. And I was also really charmed that you tell a story in your novel about your grandfather and watching your grandfather shave.
Mm,
Can you share that story with us about watching your grandfather shave?
absolutely. I mean, that was part of my ritual whenever I stayed with those
Mhm.
grandparents, my mom's parents, and I'd watch them get ready. I'd watch them get ready.
Mhm.
And one day he propped me up on the dresser, and instead of slapping the shaving soap on his face, he slapped it on mine and turned his razor over and shaved me with the other end. And I said, I feel like a king, Pop. And he said, you are a king. And I'm like, I can't be a king. I'm not a boy. And he's like, you just have to be you. You just had to be Gemma, you know? And I think he really saw me. I feel like he really saw me, and when I transitioned at 38 and I went to the barber shop for the first time, I got a straight razor shave. I tell you, I went back every week after that, and it was a real homecoming for me in myself, and
Yeah,
I feel like I carry my pop with me when I go into the barber shop, because both my grandparents were, both my grandfathers were real old school gentlemen. They always dressed up, always, every single day, for work and even for dinner. They just always smell good, and they always look good, and so I like to think that they were some real positive male role models for me, for sure. Just as
yeah,
people. But that's a memory I'll treasure forever.
yeah. I really love that one too.
Yeah.
Another thing that really struck me about your novel was you. I mean, you come from a very devout Irish Catholic background, and I mean, you're a very spiritual person with this deep connection to God. And after you broke away from the Roman Catholic Church, you worked very hard at finding another place within religion. And this passage that you wrote really stuck with me. I felt the presence of God in a gay bar more than any church I've ever been in. Everyone was welcome. No one was turned away. And I just kept thinking, did you ever feel like giving up on God?
Just like most people, sometimes we
Mhm.
feel like giving up just on things we know or things we were taught to know, or
Yeah,
giving up on ourselves time and time again. People do that.
yeah,
We do that. We have
yeah.
those moments of self-doubt
Mhm.
and but I feel like my spirituality now is with nature, and
Yeah,
it's with other people,
yeah.
like yourself. Connection
Yes.
is what I cherish most, and there's no place really for institutionalized. There's no place for me in institutionalized religion. I don't feel that kind of connection there anymore, but I have that kind of connection in nature and with people, and that's what I love most of all, and that's where I find peace. You know, that's where I find peace.
Just a couple more questions for you, Gemma. When I was reading your book, like I kept thinking of the movie Wild, starring Reese Witherspoon. You know,
Yeah.
she's on this incredible journey. We had Martin Sheen, The Way, walking the Camino de Santiago. If there was a movie about your walk, would you play yourself, or who would you get to play Gemma?
Wow. I mean, I was asked that question recently, and I don't know if you know this, but there was a documentary about me that aired on CBC television,
Yes.
and it covered part of my walk. And so it was really, really weird to be on screen, you know, and in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of having someone play me, again, I felt that kind of, I feel like that's a weird question because it was weird even to be me on screen, you know, let alone
Yeah.
think about someone else playing me. So I don't really know. I think I'll have to think about that one. You know, in that way. Yeah, that's something to think about for sure. I don't really know how to answer that question, but anyway, I did see the movie that Reese Witherspoon played in, and that was quite powerful. I watched it after my walk, actually, and
Ah,
read that book after my walk, and it was based on a book, right? And you know, certainly there's something about these long walks that I think are spiritual as well. You know, and,
absolutely. That connection with nature.
yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's some similarities, and I think it's important too to realize that no matter how different we may think we are, that we're the same. We're very similar. You know,
Yes.
um, we all hurt, we all feel anger, we all feel sadness. You know, and I
Mhm.
think that where we get lost is that we forget each other's humanity. We forget how closely connected we are and how similar we actually are. So I hope that in these narratives that come up in my book, that people can relate to that. And it feels like in the feedback that I'm getting that they can, that they are, you know, in fact, my words are resonating with them in that kind of journey, you know? So,
Yes.
yeah, but you
And
stumped me
what
on
are
the
you?
one.
Oh,
You stumped me,
sorry.
you stumped me on that one about who. I couldn't answer it in the other interview that I did either. And I was like, oh, maybe I need to start thinking about this, but you know.
Gemma, what are you currently working on?
Wow. Well, I'm finishing off my master's here
Mhm.
at Memorial University. I'm working on a film, my own documentary film. I'll be producing it and directing it. The working title of the film is called Client H, which is there's a chapter in my book called Client H. So it's about it's about the women survivors in terms of clergy sexual abuse. I feel like, especially here in Newfoundland and Labrador, in St. John specifically, the narrative of female abuse survivors got lost, and it was mostly focused on male abuse survivors. And so I've been traveling the world and meeting other survivors, so I wanted to connect that narrative somehow to my own story before I transitioned. So that's what I'm working on now, a documentary film. I'm also writing some pieces for various books and working on my second book, which is the working title for the book is called In Transit, and it's part
Mhm.
travel log and also focuses on my advocacy after the walk itself, but also when I started my transition from, you know, when I started hormone therapy
Mhm.
and came out as non-binary, you know, as opposed to female to male. And so
Mhm.
it's about navigating, about there not being an endpoint to a transition, being
Yes.
stuck within a binary of male and female when the world is so stuck in binaries and there's no place. You feel like there's no place for you. And so that's why the book is called In Transit. So we'll see what
Yes.
happens. But yeah, I'm working on that currently right now, as well as a bunch of other things. I don't
Yeah.
really slow down much. I really like
Yeah.
to move.
Yeah, I was gonna say not busy at all.
Yeah, no, I really like to be on the go, but I do find time for myself and take care of myself. And I'm still swimming. It's fall here and it's really cold, but when I get out of the water, when I get out of the pond, I feel like a Viking. You know,
Oh.
so it makes me feel good. So, whatever. It's all good.
Well, Gemma, I would like to say a great big thanks to you today for coming on All About Books and just talking about your incredible book and your incredible journey. So for our listeners out there, I will put links down below in the description box to Gemma's website and also Breakwater, so you can learn more about Gemma and also purchase a copy of the book. And thank you
Thank you.
for
I just want
listening.
no
Oh,
listen.
sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to say that I'm donating half my royalties in this year to Pathways, which is the organization I founded for survivors of clergy abuse. So I just
Oh,
want to get a little plug in there that if people are
absolutely.
fussy about me, then maybe they'll buy the book anyway, and it's for a good cause. So thank you.
Absolutely a good cause. Yes. So thank you. And for everyone else as well, please come back next Tuesday because I will have another author and another story for you. Thank you for listening.